unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get up and move and kind of exercise in this one, so you're going to have to stay with us after lunch. Hopefully you didn't have too heavy of a lunch, you're not going to go to sleep. Our session today is really about how, as a community, we can diversify revenue. And part of that community piece is with us, we have two local United Ways, but one of our local United Ways has brought with them our prestigious donors and very important people to us as a network. So you will hear from not just the staff perspective, but from the donor perspective at how we as a United Way should, could, and can think about asking donors for dollars in a very unique way, talking about endowment plan giving, making sure that you are understanding how to start your programs and the success and challenges that it takes to do that. My name is Jennifer Giff. I am the Director of Major Gifts at United Way Worldwide. And with me today, I will start with Regan. Yep.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Megan Flippin, and I have the honor of serving as President and CEO for the United Way of Rutherford and Kennon counties in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I understand Tennessee has the most attendees at the conference this time. Tennessee folks in the room. So I look forward to sharing with you all this afternoon what I have learned from our plan giving program, which we call the Legacy Society at our local United Way.
And Brett, would you like to introduce yourself and Frank?
Sure. I'm Brett Eckerman, United Way of Iredell County, which is just north of Charlotte, in North Carolina.
Woo!
We got our representation here, and we're a small United Way. We'll get into the details of that in just a little bit, but if I could get some feedback from the room, how many of you guys are $10 million or more in annual revenue? Okay. How many of you guys are between $5 and $10 million in annual revenue? Right. How many of you guys are $1 to $2 million? Okay.
Yeah.
And how many of you guys are under $1 million in annual revenue? So I want to make one point that we're going to hear this from a couple of different size perspectives, but this is an endowment philosophy that you can implement at any size. So for my fellow small United Ways out there, I want to make sure your ears perk up a little bit and pay attention. And we're going to hear quite a bit more from Frank and Linda Johnson, who are our very first and only $1 million roundtable donors in Iredell County, North Carolina, and were the inspiring force behind our journey and our travel, if you will. So we're going to hear from them a lot in the Q&A section of this. Thank you guys.
Great, Brett, thank you. And now we want to understand who you are and what you do at your United Way. So 30 seconds or less, name United Way and what you want to get out of this session.
Rebecca Hall, previously with United Way of Caldwell County for almost 10 years, currently with High Country United Way as their executive director for the past 14 months. Woo. And just diversifying revenue.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm Heather Crossy. I'm with the United Way of Volusia Flagler counties in Daytona Beach, Florida. Been with the organization about a year now and just looking at other ways, other streams that we can access revenue.
I'm Pat Ross, Senior Resource Director with United Way of West Tennessee. And I'm looking to find hopefully a couple $1 million givers. I've been with United Way about 30 years, which that will make my work retirement absolutely.
Oh, that's
Great.
I'm Joe Fowler with United Way Central Kentucky, and mostly here for, as everybody else, revenue stream and increasing our endowment.
Fantastic.
Bobby Morgan, United Way of Henderson County, North Carolina.
Woohoo!
Director of Finance, and here to see how we can diversify our revenue streams and different methods of doing that.
Great.
Scott Geddes, Director of Finance, Fairfield County, Ohio, United Way. And I'm really interested to try to find a way to make our method M0 through a planned giving campaign so that all our expenses are out of planned giving.
Yeah.
And then we can go out to any donor and say, look, all your money's going to go to meet a need.
Fantastic.
We're not going to take any fees.
I'm Stephanie Linkus. I'm the President and CEO of United Way of the Ocoee region in Cleveland, Tennessee. And I'll just say I want to learn it all.
Great.
I'm Sarah Helmick with United Way of Iredell County, and I am a part of the team, fortunate to be a part of the team that is presented today, so.
Great.
Hello, my name is Stefan from the United Way of Pasco County in Florida. I'm primarily here for the nice walks that this place provides. Also, maybe maximizing revenue.
Great.
I'm Tyler Sanlucci. I'm with United Way of Pasco as well. I'm a grant writer, and I'm just here to learn how to diversify our revenue streams.
So tell us where that is.
Pasco County is right outside of Tampa, Florida, about an hour north.
Fantastic. Okay.
Good afternoon, Laura Knight, also from United Way Pasco, Senior Associate, and just interested in other ways of diversifying our
Fantastic.
revenue.
Okay.
I'm Lisa Cofer, United Way of Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia, and we kicked off an official endowment campaign back in 2016. Our goal at that time was $9 million. We've raised a little over $7 million, and our goal is to, for those, the interest from those dollars go in. So this year we are putting $158,000 toward our admin expenses. But we've gone to those usual folks, and I want to see how we can
Broaden your
strengthen
base.
that and broader that and diversify our revenues.
Absolutely.
I'm Sarah McElrath with United Way of Asheville and Buncombe County in Western North Carolina. I'm a resource development assistant, but it's kind of a finance res dev position as well as managing the donor database. So I'm excited to learn as much as possible.
Fantastic.
I'm Courtney Layfield. I'm the Executive Director for Lake Martin Area United Way in East Central Alabama. We are a very small United Way, so I'm excited to see you guys here. And I've only been ED for 5 months, so I am still very much in the learning phase, even though I've been with my United Way for 5 years.
Hi, I'm Katie Wines. I'm from United Way of Brevard County, which is the Space Coast Kennedy Space Center area. I am resource development, and I'm hoping to bring back some ideas for an endowment campaign within our community.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Austin Higgins. I am with United Way of Roanoke Valley up in Virginia, and I'm in resource development. And really, I'm only 2 months into this, so just in sponge mode, trying to soak it all in.
Great. It's wonderful to have you. Welcome to United Way.
Tanya with United Way of the Accord region, and I'm just here to learn.
Great.
Tina Christensen, Director of Philanthropy, Horry County, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. I am a sponge also. I'm 3 months in and trying to learn the United Way fundraising.
Drinking from a fire hose.
Dave Mazesco, United Way of Logan County, Bellefonte, Ohio, and hoping to campaign proof our United Way.
Great. Back in the back.
I'm Kelsey Camarena. I am the Senior Director of Annual Campaign at the United Way of Forsyth County in North Carolina. I've been in the United Way Network for about 7 years, and I am hoping to learn how to diversify our individual giving outside of work for this campaign.
We've got a lot of North Carolina folks in here.
Susie Anthony, I'm VP of Finance for United Way of Greater Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we are in the middle of strategic planning, looking at how to diversify our revenue streams to compensate for declining workplace campaign.
Oh, great. Okay.
Hey everyone, I'm Kayla Stugart. I'm with United Way of the Killy region. I'm Director of Development there, and just learning best practices on the personal front.
All right.
Gary Matthews, Executive Director of the United Way of Hamlin County in East Tennessee. And I noticed this was in the card room, and I was just curious as to what was going to go on here. So
We're going to play poker as soon as we're done. I have no idea how to play poker. And last and certainly not least.
I'm Amy Harper with United Way of Sevier County. I'm Executive Director, and we're in the area that Dolly Parton.
Okay.
Looking for new ways too.
All right, so it looks like, and it sounds like, develop sustainable funding and figuring out how to diversify revenue. I love that we have folks in here that are not technically part of the fundraising staff. It takes everybody. We're a community, we're a family, and it's gonna take each and every one of us for our United Ways to be successful. Today's session is 90 minutes. We've already kind of jumped into that. Megan is going to present from her perspective, and then Brett and Frank and Linda are going to talk to you a little bit. We're going to have a panel discussion, but we want to hear from you. Once they're finished, we will open the floor for questions, and we'll try to answer everything that you can throw at us, okay? All right, Megan.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. So I mentioned earlier, just to give you a little snapshot of our United Way, that we are in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is literally the geographic center of Tennessee. So we are about 30 miles southeast of Nashville, about 90 miles northwest of Chattanooga along that I-24 corridor. And our annual campaign is usually between 2.7 and $3-ish million just in workplace giving. When you look at grants and other things that we do, we're a little bit over $3 million. When I started with United Way in 2009, it was a great time to get in fundraising. If you remember what was going on in 2009 with the recession. I knew a lot about sponsorships, I knew a lot about events, doing fundraising through those channels. I knew about annual giving. I really didn't know what a planned gift was. I thought every gift was a planned gift, right? Because technically you kind of plan the gift even if it's an annual gift or a sponsorship. So I really had no idea, 13 years ago, what planned giving was. And I feel very proud today with our board leadership and the volunteer leadership that we've had and the staff dedication that we have built a pretty robust planned giving program. When I started in my current role just a few years ago, we were probably 97% workplace campaigns for our revenue. We've gotten that down to about 78–80%. Some of that has just been the natural decline in workplace giving, but also our dedication to other types of resource diversification and bringing those up. We actually have in our strategic plan that we want workplace giving to be 50% in the next 3 years. Not that we want to see those numbers go down any further, but we want to build up the other areas so that we are really not as dependent as we once were on those workplace giving campaigns. So in our community, probably the two largest industries is manufacturing, automotive manufacturing specifically. We have a huge Nissan plant, about 8,000 to 10,000 employees. The North American headquarters for Nissan is in the county right next door to us, and they have a plant in our county. General Mills has a pretty large presence, and then a lot of their suppliers for both Nissan and General Mills are in our community. So big manufacturing, industrial type county. Bridgestone is one of our largest campaigns, but also healthcare is a large area for us. National Healthcare Corporation, NHC, is in our county, headquartered there. Maybe you're familiar more with HCA. It's just in Nashville, but has a lot of presence in Rutherford County as well. So just to kind of give you an idea of what our United Way looks like. So about 6 years ago, I had a volunteer approach me that had been a longtime total donor, longtime supporter of United Way, had been a former executive with Pfizer, had lived all around the country, and been really involved with the different United Ways that he had, wherever he had lived, he had been very involved and very supportive there. And so they'd come back to Murfreesboro to retire, and he said, 20 years ago when I lived here, we kind of kicked around this idea of doing a planned giving program, but we really couldn't get any traction. We just kind of kept pushing it, but this was the late 90s, early 2000s, and he said it just, there wasn't an appetite for it at that time. So he was like, I would really like to revisit this and go back, because I think it could, have a lot of benefit for our local United Way. So in 2016, we said, okay, we'll do a one-year campaign. We'll call it the Legacy Society. And we had an initial goal of $1 million and 10 members. We kind of thought, like on average, if we could get 10 households to do $100,000 plan, then we would call that successful. So we put together our plan, we went out, and what we found was there wasn't appetite because we raised $4 million and had over 30 members in that first year. And so I share that because I think a lot of times we might do something and it's not successful, maybe there's not an appetite for it, but that doesn't mean that 3 or 5 or even 20 years later that that's still the case. So I would encourage you, if you've tried planned giving before or tried to get it off the ground and it wasn't as successful as you hoped it would be, that doesn't mean that you can't try it again or maybe take a different angle. So hopefully some of the things that we'll share with you today will help you be able to do that. So subsequently, we started direct mail campaigns. That first year, 2016, was kind of our first initial launch for the Legacy Society. We had a public launch, we did a press release, kind of had a kickoff event, and we said, okay, all gifts that we received by this date, I think it was November 1st, we're gonna have a closing celebration at the end of the year for that campaign at our Tocqueville and Endowment Chairs home. He agreed to host that for us. And so, like I said, we far exceeded our goals for that year and felt like we were coming off of a high from being able to surpass the goals that we had. So from there we said, you know, every year in January, we're going to do a letter campaign. So what we did is not just looked at our Tocqueville donors, which we have about 20 Tocqueville donors, just to kind of give you a frame of reference, not just our $5,000 and up, but we're also gonna look at our loyal contributors. They may not be able to write us a check for $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, but they can probably put us in their will or do a life insurance policy that would be the equivalent of that upon their death that they could leave to United Way. And how we created a sense of urgency with that direct mail campaign, we do an annual awards luncheon every August. So our board changes in July, or our new year starts in July. And so August is kind of the public announcement of our new board, our award recipients for the past year, an opportunity to acknowledge volunteers, things of that nature. But we also say in our letter that we do in January, we want to recognize you if you intend to join the Legacy Society this year. So if you will please let us know of your intended gift by June 30th, you know, we'll be able to do that at this year's annual award luncheon on August, whatever date it may be. So that creates a little bit of a sense of urgency, because I don't think a lot of people sit around thinking about their death and their will and when they're gonna, you know, do their life insurance policy. I think for a lot of people, it's one of those things that, yeah, I'll get to that, you know, next month, and then it's next month. So that helps us to create that sense of urgency. And we do follow-ups throughout the spring. So after that January direct mail campaign, and I actually have some handouts after the session and some examples that you're free to take with you of what we include in that. So what we decided in 2021, which was the 65 years of our local United Way anniversary, is that every 5 years we're gonna do an anniversary campaign. And we started planning this in January of 2020. By March of 2020, my chair started getting cold feet, right? Because this little thing called a pandemic kind of popped up overnight. And I said, you know, it's really easy to kind of focus on what's happening right in front of us, but we can't take our eye off the ball of what is in the future. And he kept saying, you know, I still think this is a good time to do this campaign. I said, we can scale it back. We can, you know, go about it a little bit differently than we might have before the pandemic. But it's just really important because there's always going to be something. It's not a pandemic, it might be a natural disaster. Because for those who don't know, about a week before the pandemic, Middle Tennessee was pretty devastated by a series of tornadoes. So it kind of had a two-punch there. And so it's always going to be something that can take you away from a plan giving campaign and kind of looking ahead. There's always going to be that fire to put out right now. So ultimately we said, okay, we'll do a smaller campaign. Our goal was to get to $8 million in total pledges. We were like 5.85 at that point, so we kind of had this odd goal of 2.15. And so we said, we'll do a quiet phase with a goal to get to 30% of that, kind of the spring part of that year. We hired a consultant to kind of help us with the prospecting and some of the framework and planning for that. And it was a consultant that our local university, Middle Tennessee State University, had used, and so we felt like there was some correct credibility there with them. And so we did a public kickoff event in June at one of our founding Legacy Society members' homes. Said yes, I think actually had gotten to 40% of our goal. We want you to be part of it because success breeds success. So I think anytime you kind of make this public launch or public announcement, you kind of want to already be like a decent way to your goal, and that motivates other people to be a part of it. I don't think you want to announce that you're too close because then people may be, well, they're so close, they really don't need my gift, or my gift really won't make an impact. So I typically say kind of personal rule of thumb, if you can be 30% to 50% towards your goal by the time you make some kind of public announcement for a plan giving program or a campaign you're going to do, then that will breed success. In October, we decided to do a lunch and learn. So among our board members and some of our key committee volunteers, we had an attorney, an insurance agent, and a financial advisor that we asked to serve on a panel. So we sent invitations to all of our $500 and above donors, board members, whatnot, had a really great turnout. And we were very clear on the invitation. This is a non-solicitation event. Like, it's just educational. We're not gonna lock the door and ask you to fill out a pledge card at the end for the Legacy Society. Because I think it's important for people to know what they're signing up for, or just know what to expect when you invite them to an event. So we did that in October, and then we had that December 15th pledge deadline, because again, they said in February, we're gonna have this celebration, and we wanna be sure that we can recognize you at the celebration, so we need to know of your commitment by December 15th in order to be able to do that in February. Of course, if somebody calls us December 30th, yes, we still accept their pledge, we're not, turning anybody away. And we just try to create that sense of urgency. One thing that we did learn in this, and yes, we actually exceeded our goal of 2.1, I think it was 2.4 is where we landed, so we were higher than what our goal was, which was a great announcement to be able to make that February. But one thing that we did learn from that is that it gave us an opportunity to build a pipeline, because we did have a lot of donors that said, this year is not good, but can you come back next year, or maybe in 2 years, and ask me. So we kind of built this separate list of people, because I'm like, I don't forget, I will put it on my calendar, and I will come back next year in 2 years and follow up with you. And so after our campaign closed, we said, this worked out pretty well. We kind of built it around our 65 years, so we said, let's do this for 70, and 75, and 80, and make it an every 5 years campaign. Now that doesn't mean that we're not going to pursue Plain Giving Asks during that time, but just to raise awareness, we can couple it with the anniversary campaigns to have that really public push while we're still working on it in those in-between years. Some lessons that we've learned just in the 5 or 6 years that we've gotten into the Plain Giving space. And this is something I had done or learned through a course, but also a consultant taught us. They said a lot of times when people do Plain Giving, they think about, well, who has wealth or who has money? Well, first of all, you need to think about who is close to you or who you have access to, and then do they have the capacity to give? Sometimes you might see this, it's ABC on here, you might see it as CIA, Capacity Interest Access. I think ABC is a little bit easier to remember, but access, so who can you easily get to? Maybe it's a degree of separation between you and a board member, or you and one other person, or you directly, that you can make contact with a prospect. Who do you feel like has already demonstrated belief in your organization? They've been a donor in the past, or they're a current donor. They have attended your events. They have supported you in some way to demonstrate that they're already interested in the work that your local United Way is doing. And then lastly, who has the capacity? And as I said earlier, capacity is not just who has that wealth, but also who has been supporting us for a long period of time that may not be able to write that $50,000 check today or make that kind of gift today, but they could do a will or a life insurance policy or leave us a piece of property or something of that nature. Another lesson learned, I think when we started out, we said, let's go towards people who were older, kind of their final phase of life, and go target them first for those plain gifts. And what we learned is that many people in that phase of life have already done their will, they've already done that kind of planning, and in most cases it wasn't going to change. And in some cases they had already included United Way, but those things and those plans were already set. So we kind of organically started seeing some of our younger professionals, mid-professionals, express interest in our Legacy Society. And to be honest, a lot of them can secure life insurance policies pretty easily at a younger age. And so we had quite a few of those young and middle-aged professionals that became part of our founding members of Legacy Society and have continued to support. I would say out of all of our members, probably 25 to 30% are under 40, which I think is really interesting. Again, remember your loyal donors. So for us, we consider that people have given $500 plus over the last 10 or more years. So people who've been consistent with their giving and obviously support what you do. They're not just a one and done, they've given 1 year and then you never heard from them again. And then we have a constant cycle within our plan giving efforts. Inform, ask, and thank, or thank, ask, inform, whatever order you want to put it in. But we want to make sure that we keep them informed of the work that we're doing, thank them and steward them, but make sure we're making those asks. There's some scenarios like the direct mail campaign where we pass that wide net into a letter campaign, but then we also kind of have a funnel where we say, well, this person we feel like is primed to actually have a face-to-face conversation and have a direct ask. And so just make sure, you know, you're kind of thinking of all channels of solicitation with your ask, because we've been surprised sometimes people that have responded to a direct mail campaign that haven't given in 20 years, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, you know, we did our wills and now you're doing $250,000 as part of this, so this letter was timely, thank you. And then one thing that I can't stress enough is connecting with your local attorneys or insurance agents, financial advisors. When we first started the Legacy Society, we did a luncheon, and our board chair-elect was a pretty prominent insurance executive in our community. So he invited his colleagues. We had another financial advisor that we had that was on the board that invited his colleagues, attorneys. We just said, we're starting this plan giving program. Here's the work of our United Way. You know, if you have clients that are interested and maybe you don't know what their plans are for their will or estate, just keep us in mind. Because this is something that they could do if they don't have, you know, something already decided for their will. I think there's some really important factors that you have to ensure are in place for success. The first of which is committed and engaged volunteers. And I'll go a step further after our total session yesterday and say, if you're not the CEO, because if you're in here, you're probably already interested, but make sure your CEO is bought into this too, because you've got to have the support from your staff and board volunteer leadership. And ideally, for us, people who serve on our total and plan giving committee, they've already made those gifts or those commitments, because we believe if they're asking other people to do the same, then they should already be dedicated to that effort. Invest in training. That was something that, you know, I had some conversations with our board about. Is this is an investment. You know, yes, it will cost X, but I guarantee you we will see an ROI on this investment. And so we did trainings not only for staff, but for our board members as well. And now we're gonna have annual trainings every August for our staff and board and key volunteers, just to keep this top of mind and fresh each year. Clear messaging. Why is this important? What will my financial support actually accomplish? And what is involved? So for us, we set a threshold of a $10,000 outright gift. So if somebody wanted to make a gift of stock or cash, it was $10,000. If it was a deferred gift, so like a will or a life insurance policy, it's $25,000. Now they can donate any amount they want, but to be recognized as a Legacy Society member, those were the thresholds. And we have a couple people that, you know, did give, but they gave it below those levels, and they're part of our plan giving program, but they're not part of the Legacy Society membership. Somebody mentioned earlier that hopefully their plan giving efforts one day will account for their operational expenses, and that's our goal. So I think you want to be really clear about what those dollars will do once they're realized. And we've been very honest that, you know, it's our long-term goal to be able to fund the operational expenses of our United Way through this endowment fund, so that every dollar we raise annually through workplace campaigns or sponsorships, things like that, goes back and invested into program and service delivery. One thing I think is really important, and our chair, our first chair was very adamant about, is making sure you continue to say thank you. Not just after they make their gift, but continue every year or every quarter or whatever is best for your United Way to say thank you. Sometimes I think with plan giving donors, you say thank you once and then you kind of forget forgive items sometimes, or maybe they're not kind of right there in the forefront. So make sure you continue to steward them. And as I said earlier, success breeds success. Other people want to join a winning effort, so make sure that you are publicizing the success that your Plan Giving program has had. And that's something that we really try to focus on, because when people saw the success that we were having, they wanted to be a part of that too. And make sure Plan Giving is always like easily findable on your website. We have a whole Plan Giving page, and you can't see the whole page up here, so it's too long. But we actually list all of our Legacy Society members, and then we have links to these two documents. So this is kind of our local Legacy Society booklet, I guess you would say. It kind of talks about everything I've just shared with you here: thresholds, recognition levels, lists our current members, has a pledge form. And then we actually have a Legacy Society estate planning workbook, which our initial chair had gone to a conference with United Way Worldwide back in like 1997, and literally brought us like a hard copy of a Plan Giving booklet that he had picked up then. So we like recreated it. He didn't have an electronic version of it. So we recreated it, and it just helps people who may not have gone through this process yet kind of start thinking about some things. And so it's just a tool to help them kind of gauge what their long-term plans will be for their will or estate. So that's been our experience. I heard the presenter say this morning, if you've seen One United Way, you've just seen One United Way, so not everybody experience is going to be the same, but that's been our United Way's experience and what has worked well for us. So at this time, I will turn it over to Brent.
Thank you, Megan. Lots of information in there, and I know most of you guys don't know me from before, but it probably won't shock you that she was much more on the ball than I was about getting the slides created for this presentation. So she got hers in right away, and what my slides are going to try to do is build a little bit on what she's doing. So you're not going to hear a whole lot of disagreement. I would echo almost everything she said was an important part of our campaign in some way or another, but there's some things that were a slightly different twist in our campaign, or a slightly different approach, and I want to highlight some of those and bring those to the forefront in my presentation. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we stopped talking about it and finally achieve sustainability. Our planning director, the person who helped walk us through how we were going to do this thing when we came up with the $1 Million Challenge, said to me, Brett, I've been around United Way and we've been talking about having an endowment for 25 years. 25 years we've been saying, we're going to do this one day. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we created that urgency, and it was really the brilliance of a suggestion from the Johnsons and a challenge from the Johnsons that helped us do that. I'll walk through that. So to get back to our United Way, our population at the time of this campaign was roughly 80,000. We're actually going through a geographic expansion right now in our service area. We'll more than double. We raised about 650, 700,000 through our annual workplace campaign and had a staff of 3.5. To go to the point that Megan made about the percentage of revenue coming in from workplace campaign, our total revenue for the last 3 years has averaged right around 1.7. So we were in the same place that they were 10 years ago, where campaign revenue, 95% of the money that came in through our door. You can see we're at the point now where it's less than half of our overall revenue. Some of that's through this endowment work, some of that's through that young lady over there, and some work she's done on doing grant writing and other ways of building our total toolbox around revenue diversification. This has been an important part of it. I wanted to give you guys this total timeline. Over here, there's lots of steps and lots of things that went into that. There was an abandoned Canadian inheritance. There was a lady that lived at a country club that never, as far as we could tell, gave a donation to United Way during her lifetime, but gave her entire estate to United Way when she passed away. So there's some lightning strike kinds of things there. I wanted you to have some of that when you get the slides about a week after the conference ends up. They'll be on the website. But there were, what was much more important to our success in building this Plan Giving program than those kind of lightning bolts was 3 persistent pillars, persistent guides that carried us through the transformation and helped us do that. The first one of those guides was the vision of our donors, Frank and Linda Johnson. This endowment was born in a conversation with them shortly after they made an unsolicited $100,000 gift to our annual campaign. And we asked them, what should we do with that? And their patience and persistence, both in that initial visioning, they did not mandate that. They said that's an undesignated, unrestricted gift. You guys do with it what you need to. But in that conversation, this concept was born for our United Way. And we were not ready when they shared that vision to step up to that plate. But their patience and guidance over the years has helped us get ready and have tremendous success. The second thing is to echo something you mentioned, which is we way underestimated the appetite in our community for this opportunity. We have folks that have been giving $1,000, $2,000, $250 to us for 25, 30 years. And I have yet to have one of those individuals just get mad at me because we want to talk to them about their legacy for sustaining that into the future. In fact, I've much more had really authentic engagement with donors that I do not get around their annual campaign when we have those conversations about what's next? How can we make that last into the future? What's that going to mean for your kids that you've donated to this United Way for 20 to 25 years? So don't underestimate the fact that your donors want to have that conversation with you. At least most of them. The third thing is the challenge campaign. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And that was also an idea that the Johnsons brought to the table and has really been a big part of our successes. So our prerequisites, what we had to have into place, and I think Megan's right, there's a lot of techniques. We also had a consultant that helped us through the development process as we trained our board. And so Jennifer came out and trained my board one day for us. I don't know if she'll do that for all of y'all, but if you catch her before she leaves the room, you got a better chance. It's been a process, but the key was relationships. I love this picture of my board members having fun and being excited. Success breeds success. Like you said, this is fun stuff. This is changing your community for generations to come. And it needs to be built around fun and the relationships. So the challenge match, what the challenge did for us, and I know Frank and Linda will talk a little bit more about how they came at it from a donor perspective, but what it meant for us from an organizational perspective is it cut through all that stuff that had gotten in the way for the 20, 25 years prior to us doing this work. You know what the number one objection was to us getting involved in plan giving? It's going to hurt our agencies. We're a traditional United Way, we have agency partners. Oh, that's going to hurt our agency. It's going to take money away from our annual campaign. So a couple of things I'll say about that. One, it didn't happen. I mean, I have maybe a handful of donors who took their annual campaign and said, we're going to do that for 5 years and make that our endowment. Almost everybody bought the line, hook and sinker, that this is something new and different and more. Continue your annual campaign, do something special for us. The other thing the challenge did was create urgency, and it made a really neat little connection with United Way Life, which is a program United Way Worldwide has, an insurance program, to go back to what Megan said, because it gave us an opportunity to talk to young donors about doing something that probably won't land in our coffers for 25 years to make a planned gift, but that would count towards getting $1 million in this endowment in 2 years. So it was a really nice blend of both immediate impact and long-term cultivation that landed in several large gifts for us, especially with younger folks. So excited to have Frank and Linda here with us today. And so they can share with you a little bit about how you can find Frank and Linda Johnson. You will notice I did not put their phone number or address. And I'm sure they and I would both appreciate it if y'all didn't start calling them at the end of this presentation. But they have been our absolute champions and have made this possible for us. And I guess I'd like to start by just asking them if they don't mind saying a few words about why this concept was important to them and how they chose United Way. And just to introduce you a little bit to who they are, Linda is a former teacher and has been community volunteer with, I don't know, 150 different organizations across Iredell County over the years. And Frank has served on several statewide boards, including the community college system, or North Carolina DOT. He also founded JNS, which I'm not going to try to get into detail of what a thermocoupler is, but it's an industrial thermometer is as close as I'm going to get. But they're very good at manufacturing those. They've won several regional and national quality awards for doing that. He's also, I don't think he'll pick up many votes in this room because I didn't hear anybody else from Iredell County, but he's currently running for Iredell County Commissioner. So if anybody is thinking of moving to Iredell County, there's an opportunity. But I'll just introduce you guys and let you share a few words about how you ended up working with us.
Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it.
Turn this thing on.
I wasn't born with money. I've 6 siblings or 7 kids. We were raised in Gastonia, North Carolina, which is, we came anywhere north of here, you came through Gastonia. My mom died of breast cancer in 1955, left 7 little kids. The youngest one was less than a year old. My dad traveled, and our community took care of us. We were not orphans because of our community, although it was threatened many times. There's a real bad orphanage in Raleigh called Nazareth, and that's where we were. We didn't behave ourselves. But our community, in essence, took care of us. We were not allowed to get in trouble at night. We were not allowed to, do things not because it was a rule at home or whatever. It's because we had a community looking after us. Everybody knew who we were, and they looked after us. But so that's how I got started. Is having an appreciation for what communities can do. And I'm what you call a communitarian in terms of my ethics and virtues. I believe in it. I believe that the community is better than some, the whole is better than some of its parts, and that we have a mission assigned to us as a community to do the best we can with whatever we can. When you look around what communities do, we see that there's all sorts of. We have the Partnership for Young Children. I can just go through the list of things Linda was on the boards of, but there were so many things in our community that were going on that there's some consolidation. There always has been. When I first moved to Statesville, I was a pace setter. Our company was a pace setter with the United Way. We thoroughly enjoyed doing that. We raised money, got pictures in the paper. All the employees were proud of themselves for what we did. And it was a matching system where we matched their donations that they kicked in, and it was a lot of fun. It brought some cohesion to our company, and we kind of, got started that way. We believe in the United Way. We know that the United Way is all about community, and I'm here to encourage you to sell that to your communities, to make them aware of the fact that you are the community. You are not just some satellite outside that community, you are the community. So the community, in order to buy into that, needs to know who you are and what you do. And you need to define yourselves in certain ways. By the way, my email is temperature@msn.com. If anyone wants a copy of these notes, I'll be glad to send it to you. Okay? So you're not getting my phone number. But you have to make sure, we know that United Way has to be personal. You also have to let it be known that you are trustworthy. It's like Caesar's wife, you kind of don't just have to be there, people have to have a perception that you are there and that you are trustworthy. We make sure that everybody in the Ireland Statesville United Way is involved in advancement. Everybody is. Everybody knows that that's your mission, is to raise money. And they must be able to say the why and the what off the top of their head on a moment's notice. Our board in Iredell County It's made up of clients as well as a normal mix, including staff and engaged community members. But having a client on your board is pretty important. You need to make sure that their person's there and nobody loses sight of your mission when you're going to these board meetings, when you're getting together, and it sure makes that person who serves on your board feel pretty good about his community and what you're doing, and the word spreads. The members need to be, the boards need to be involved in collaboration and of course partnerships, and certain chemistry is required too to be on the board, as you all probably know. But the Ireland Statesman, I should be saying Ireland United Way, because it's not Ireland Statesman anymore, is it?
It's not, we're United Way of Iredell County.
United Way of Iredell County. We make performance data readily available to donors on a regular basis. Not just financial portfolios, but evaluation of mission accomplishments. In other words, we have two bits of information that we provide to them, our financials and how are we doing on our mission. We don't like hiding things. You know, trying to convince your donors that you don't have expenses is lying to you donors, and they can smell that. They know it. So I feel like as a business person, when I ask them what you're doing and they hide their expenses from me, I'm not going to participate, to tell you the truth. So be careful about hiding that, because it's not what donors really are looking for. They want to see a transparent accounting of where you are and what you do. Second thing is, when you have these endowments and sets of money that you are not spending from hand to mouth, you have to make sure that you invest that money wisely and it's managed professionally. Okay, you cannot just put it anywhere. You can't just buy a bunch of CDs. You have to invest. In North Carolina, we're very fortunate for having the Foundation for the Carolinas, and they assist us in all that sort of stuff. And we talked about relationships, and of course they're absolutely critical, and you have to maintain those relationships enthusiastically. Okay, you can't just say, I got the guy, I'm giving him a call, I got to call Charlie on Thursday. You know, be enthusiastic about the relationships you have with folks. Next question, Brad. I'm ready.
One thing that I think was really important that you brought up, Frank, that and a couple of y'all have talked about, but I'm not sure we've talked about our philosophy around, was that internal versus external facing endowment. I've heard several of you guys talk about we want to cover our expenses with the endowment. That's certainly a popular thing. A lot of United Ways have done that. I think Rhode Island had that in place for several years. I'm not sure they still do, but we made a conscious decision early in our decision process as we were planning this out to have our endowment be an external facing endowment. So what ours does is the risky grants that it's really hard to do from money we're raising annually, because the payoff might be 5 years down the road. But we do the risky service, kind of bring new things into the community, start something up. So our first grant was to bring a veterans transitional house to Iredell County. Never had been one before. And we worked with several local partners to make that a fruition. We started a paramedicine program with our local EMS department. So I think as you start planning out what works in your community, that's one of the early toggles that you want to spend some time making sure you get right for your location. And I've seen both of those be successful, so it's not a right or wrong, but you got to figure out what's going to carry with your donors as you're making the case.
Thanks. We did our fundraising as a challenge, and I'll kind of, Brett said about that earlier. But let me tell you what's appealing about that. Linda and I were able to take a pretty good chunk of money and almost more than quadruple it. Okay, so when you invest money, you want to see it grow. Okay, when you give money, you want to see it not just used properly and invested properly, you want to have the biggest impact that you can possibly have with that money. So that's what we were thinking about in this thing, the challenge. We started the endowment, as Brett said, because we wanted to make a difference in our community. And so we talked about this, and it went pretty good, the conversation did. But after we gave the money, we saw nothing happen for 2 years. And then all of a sudden, this lady from Canada died. okay? And here pop in on top of this $100,000 gift, $1 million. You know, what a deal. That got to be things, that means we're in business, okay? That means we could do something with it. And so that's when Linda and I started thinking about what we could do to make our initial gift really mean something to the community. So here we are, we have $1.1 million now in this campaign, because it really didn't raise a whole lot of money after our first $100,000. And so we said, well, we need to grow this thing up to a bunch of money. Anybody knows who the utilitarians were back in the Industrial Revolution? Okay, anybody ever heard of John Stuart Mill? Okay, he was one of the utilitarians. Utilitarians were guys who looked at the virtuous way to live your life and how to find happiness. There's a lot of books on ethics and virtuous stuff and all that you can read about. But they meant to live a happy life and to donate. They could work and make money, or they could go to work for, like you guys did. Go to work for something. I'm sure you guys, a lot of you can make a lot more money doing something than what you're doing with United Way. But bless your hearts, you're making a big impact. I don't mean that in a Southern way. You are making a very, very strong impact in your communities. And that's gold. So don't ever, but there are people like me who I wanted to do something. I had goals in my life. I wanted to get somewhere. I wanted to do things. I wanted to make things happen. And I wanted to do more because I was a psychology major in college, just so I could get out of college. So I could get started and get doing things. And I was very aggressive. I ended up starting my own company at some point, and it was, I didn't know it would work, but I took a chance and it worked. So what these guys, these utilitarians do, and kind of like their name implies, they want to utilize what they have to give in the best way possible. For them to give, they need to make sure that what they're giving to is trustworthy. They want to make sure it's sustainable, and they're effective causes. That's why you have to know the what, the why, what you're doing with your local United Ways. Sentimentality and recognition are not necessarily obstacles to these guys giving. Everybody likes to be recognized, and everybody likes to give something they love and all that. We've been guilty of sentimentality a lot in our lives. But getting the best for your buck is what makes sense for the utilitarian. That's what I'm in it for. I want to see my dollars being used as best as they possibly can. And the United Way of Iowa County has made that happen by taking this idea that Linda and I came up with and made it a reality. And so the other thing was, one of the reasons that motivated us to start this is that our agencies in the United Way would go up and down with the economy. Over the years, you mentioned 2009, well, that's when things started getting better. But in 2007 is when things went through the floor, and it was tough. And our agencies suffered. They really, really suffered because of that. They couldn't hardly operate. Our homeless shelter, our food banks, all these things that United, Boy Scouts even, for all these things the United States supports, all these guys took a hit. And so that means that these clients that they serve took a hit, and it wasn't good for our community. And so leveling that field out, being able to use this endowment money to level those economic hills and valleys that are bound to always occur. We're in Mad Valley right now, but it was it's very, very, very important to have some consistency with the programs. And so how to cushion that impact was part of our motivation. We thought about how we could do it and came up with the Foundation for the Future idea, and that seemed to be pretty cool. But we wanted to do more than just give our $1 million. We wanted to do this challenge thing. So I Googled it. Okay, it's not that hard to do research these days. Found out that a match. You can give a 100% match, you can give a 50% match, you can give whatever sort of match you want. Just the idea of having a match is a great motivator for other people to give. It would be a motivator for me to give. The first time I ever gave a gift to my college, and we ended up giving them $1 million back in 2000, but the first time I ever gave a gift was $500. But the board at that time was matching a gift, and I worked for Honeywell at the time, and they were matching a gift. So I gave $500, Honeywell gave $500, and my $500 turned into $2,000. I was proud as anybody could be because of that. You know, it just made a big difference. So having that match is important. It's a critical aspect. I mean, we live in Iredell County. Iredell County is above Charlotte, but it's 30 miles from Virginia, it's 30 miles from South Carolina. It's one of the tallest counties in the state. But it's a unique place. People are tight there. If Kanye was there, he'd be Kanye. I mean, it's like literally squeezing blood from a turnip to get money out of people there. They just don't participate or haven't participated historically. So you got to have something to kick them off the cans and get them going. And this was something we felt like this might achieve part of that goal too. And we know that, you know, doing a challenge is a tough thing to do when doing a program. Y'all probably all know this, and you spoke to it a little bit, but I'm just gonna tell you what I came up with when I was researching. Brett did not give me this information. I did it on my own with Linda. But you gotta have a lot of data to start something like this. You have to have data about your community, you have to have data about your potential to give, and there's a lot of software out there that you can get this data from. But data is what they say when you're trying to get things done. On potential donors and on the effectiveness of the mission and what's really necessary in your community. What does your community need? And there's data for that. You can find out what you're lacking, and it's not just that you happen to see a poor guy walk down the street and he was hungry, you know, and so you start a food bank. There's different ways to figure out what your mission can be, and you can wrap your heads around it. Know that you must engage donors at a higher level. The largest gifts in history are being made right now. The very largest gifts ever in the world are being made right now. But not the Rockefellers, not the folks who built the Key West. It's other folks, and they're giving the biggest gifts they've ever done. Never gives are down. Okay, they're down. And estate plan giving is up, of course. If you plan giving. In order to do this, or if you got to believe in yourselves, and you got to show it. You know, you got to be enthusiastic, like I said earlier. But that enthusiasm is not just critical, but it's contagious. You know, you have to show your board, you have to show your community members, you have to make somebody proud of what they're doing and proud of their association with the United Way and with your community. Remember what I said at the beginning, United Way is your community. How many T's are there? 3, 4, how many T's? You know what I'm talking about? 3 T's? Heard about the 3 T's? Forgivers? Okay. Treasure, time, talent. You've heard about that? Okay. All right. There's 3 more T's, which I came up with. Okay. Ties. The ties that you have within your community are one of the T's that you need to pay attention to, and that goes back to relationships, of course. Testimony. Okay. You need to make people feel like they can brag about it. You know, they can make them, you know, they want to brag about it. They want to tell others about what they're doing to help you promote your mission. And thirdly, I've already said it once this morning, is trustworthiness. You have to make sure that you're a trustworthy organization, that people know that, and that you show it, and you continually do your reports on time and get them out there so people understand that this is our United Way. There are no secrets here. There's another endowment in states where nobody knows where the money goes most of the time. It's not public, you don't see it, and all that sort of stuff, but I wouldn't get to it because they're not transparent. And I'm just not going to do this. A bunch of old guys, you know, I'm just not going to do it. But so the testimony is needs to come from the past owners, like me. I'm testifying here, I guess. And of course recipients. So those who have benefited from what you've done. You have to locate influential people with various skills and backgrounds who can help you ignite support and collaborations. And when you find the donors, you need to find out their passions too. You need to find out what they're interested in. I've been a salesman all my life. Called on, as a matter of fact, I used to live almost in Greenville, South Carolina. It's my home away from home. Daniel Construction Company was here. It's now called Fluor Daniel. It was one of the biggest construction companies in the world at the time, and engineering firms. They built power plants and chemical plants and fiber plants all over the world, and they were one of my best customers. So I stayed down here all the time. And when I went to call on somebody, I didn't know who they were really. I would go in there and look at the walls in their office, and I would see, you know, they have their certificate or their diploma from University of North Carolina. And they graduated from law school from Duke. So who are you gonna who are you gonna emphasize in your conversation? You don't know, but you need to know them, but you need to also know what their interests are. And you can pick that up by being observant, and you can pick it up what you can by doing some research before you go see that person, and just talking to others about it. When you go to see them, you have to be able to share your ideas, and you have to know what you want them to know by the time you leave. You have to be able to explain your due diligence process and what the return on the investment as relates to the mission promise. And always when you talk to the donors, you have to consider long-term value. They're not in it to see the money pop in and go out. That's not what they're doing. That's the essential nature of a endowment. Okay, it's there, it's sustainable. And the overall numbers, the smaller givers is stagnant too, by the way. That's not growing. I mean, you said you were going to keep 50%. I wouldn't mind staying 50% no matter what you did on the other side, because we find that those smaller donors are not kicking in like they used to. I mean, look at the minimum wage. Okay, it's the same it was 25 years ago. Okay, it's tough for those people to give that money. It really is. I know that COVID and everything has caused people to make more money, but minimum wage is still $7.50. Don't tell that to our Republican opponents in Iredell County, by the way. But these arts endowments are important. Once you have your meeting set up with a guy, a girl, you're gonna see a lady, you're gonna see. How many people go to that ask, or actually go to ask for consideration? Okay, not every meeting is an ask, and you need to be aware of that, except for you need to ask for consideration. When I sold my product to the folks at Daniel Construction Company, I would ask them to consider putting me on their bid list. Okay, I didn't ask for the order every time. You can't do that. You have to be able to prepare this person to put some thought into it and let him have ownership of your mission. And so you have to sell that. So more than 2 people might be detrimental, it might not, depends on how you do your analysis of the person, but don't gang up on them. You don't want to have 3 people to read that. One guy, that's a little too much pressure. Determine if you want the spouse to be there or not, or their partner. That makes a big difference. You know, because a lot of people, I know I can't spend any money without checking with women. So they have to be aware of that. Okay, so you need to be prepared to discuss your process of naming, permanent recognition of major gifts, that sort of thing. Do you have programs like that where there's naming involved, some sort of recognition? You must have your data there and your performance matrix, both your mission and your finances available at hand. You know, you don't have to show it to them in the brochures you're giving them, but you need to have them. It's a question that will be asked. Don't say I'll send it to you later. Have it there ready to show him, and he can see what he needs to see. Don't forget your enthusiasm. Know that businesses use charitable giving for marketing purposes. Okay, and that's a big deal. You know, when you do, I don't know if I'm very sure you show, but you know, usually Randy, Mary, and Ford usually have something on there. The folks who are involved in the community, they usually like to see their logo on these things. I don't have hardly any customers in Iredell County, so I don't do that. But it's a important aspect of what you're doing to be able to let these people get recognized. And this is the ties part, to tie them into you. they probably all already know about this, but the use of donor-directed funds to appreciate stocks will come now because of tax laws and all that stuff. But donors can make donations to these funds through their own charitable trusts and then pass them to you, or they can give them to you directly. That's how we started giving, was giving appreciate stocks, and that was a good way to do it. And then we started our charitable trust, and it worked out a whole lot better because we could actually plan again, especially with tax laws have changed. You know, you don't get credit. So if we give our charitable trust a big chunk of money, we get a lot of tax benefits from that. If we give $30,000 a year to people, that's not going to benefit us very much at all, tax-wise. So encourage your folks, let them know. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, they really don't. They don't think about it. You have to match your donor's desire to mission. You must know what they desire: care, trust, effectiveness, relationship building, that sort of stuff. And use the word consider. I've already said that. And like you said, you gotta say thank you all the time. Don't ever forget, don't ever stop saying thank you. Saying thank you lets that person know you gave him a long-term gift and he deserves long-term thanks over that period of time. It's really, really important to make sure that those people who step up to these types of endeavors are thanked all the time. So, Linda, you want to say anything?
No, I think you covered
Talking about saying thanks, I appreciate you helping us say thanks. You can see why he is such a passionate and effective advocate for endowment in our United Way. I'll let you in on a secret. I'm not sure you're going to find a Frank and Linda Johnson, but I guarantee you there is somebody in your community, no matter how big or small that community may be, that cares as much about seeing your United Way take that next step as Frank and Linda have for us. They sparked it, but they didn't build that whole fire. But Frank talked about the challenge and what that did, and he mentioned we were at 1.1. They challenged us to raise $1.9 million, and then they would add $1 million on top of that. We were able to match their gift with $2.4 million in gifts and expectancies. And now, for our little United Way, we are the second largest United Way endowment in the state of North Carolina. In Forsyth County, I heard you back there, we're coming for you. But it's something you can do in your United Way, and it's going to pay long-term results.
This has been absolutely fantastic. And I don't know about you, but I have been doing this a really long time and working with volunteers for over 20 years. And Frank, I truly believe that you could light a fire under many of our volunteers. So it's a good thing you didn't give us your phone number. Everything that you said was right on. And I will say from our Tocqueville session yesterday afternoon into this morning, as well as this, you have heard several things: relationship, energy, enthusiasm, making sure you're going back, making sure you're prepared. We probably couldn't have written that script better, so we really, really thank you both for being here and sharing what you have done to spark this fantastic gift and endowment in Iredell County. Megan, we are grateful to have you and to understand how you have done your work. The floor is open. I think we're just going to open up the conversation, allow folks to answer. I have a few questions that I would like to ask as well, just to make sure that we're asking and getting some of the additional information that you might need, but I would love to hear from you for the next 20 or so minutes. And I'll start back there.
Sure, I have a question.
Can you just tell us one more time your name, where you're from, and then ask your question?
Sure, Dave Bezosco, United Way, Bell Fountain, Ohio. Megan, you talked about training for board members, you know, when you got started, or kind of ongoing training for board members. What does that entail? Who does it? And, you know, kind of some of the content of it. Because that is an issue, to keep the board members, I guess, educated on what plan giving is.
So I think different things resonate with different people. And I believe before COVID, the statistic was somebody has to hear somebody 7 to 9 times before it resonates. I've heard recently that that is now 11 to 15 times. Because now we're getting so much information and it's in such short clips that our attention spans as far as receiving and retaining information is very different. So I say that to say, we typically, any kind of trainings we do, whether it's diversity and inclusion, plan giving, I try to change up the presenter or the trainer, and I try to kind of approach it from a different angle. So when we hired the consultant that we used for this most recent campaign, they worked pretty closely with our board and our committee to train them, and they even came on site as part of the retainer we had with them, and had one-on-one meetings with our committee members and our executive committee, and a few key board members. So for that particular campaign, we used the consultants. I have brought in people that were kind of like different consultants in plan giving, or maybe even people like from our university, people that work in the foundation. So I've just kind of tried to change it up. In August, our plan is to do a training. I'm still working on solidifying who that trainer is going to be. But when we had our board retreat back in March, plan giving and major giving was at the top of the list of the things that the board said that they wanted to keep learning more about and keep being educated on. So probably at least every August, and we may do it twice a year, we're going to regularly do a focus on major gifts and plan giving. And not just that, but also solicit our board too at that time and talk about the importance of, as board members, if you're able to make this gift and be the example, that only perpetuates our ability to go out and be successful in the community making those asks.
And then do they have specific roles that they have for the training, or is it just here's what plan giving is and it's kind of keeping them updated, or is it training to send them out and do some stuff like that?
Yeah, so both and. I would say it's like, here's, this packet that we have, it's like, here's all the different vehicles that you can use for plan giving, because I think will, life insurance are probably the two obvious, but there's some other things too that people can give. So it's an education of what a plan gift is, what that looks like, the different vehicles available, but then also, how you can help us make ask in the community or help us identify prospects as we go forward. So we do have a plan giving and total committee, which is chaired by a board member, has mostly board members on it, but we do have a few people in the community who serve on that committee. Attorney, financial advisor, insurance agent. And we, as a side note, we do use our committees to try to identify future board members. So if somebody's a rock star on the committee, then ultimately they may move up to the board level. But our committee is really the one that gets specific tasks or prospects assigned to them. We do have our board do a relationship mapping exercise to try to cast that wider net and figure out who they know. But our committee is really the ones that are focused on having a specific task or homework assignment, so to speak, after the training.
Thanks, Megan. Right there first, and then we'll go back there.
Sarah McElrath with United Way of Asheville and Buncombe County. I was interested when you're talking about you never stop thanking your donors. We, of course, do thank you letters, and we have RDC chair members that make personal phone calls, emails, etc. But outside of those efforts, and then maybe events, what are some other ways that you consistently thank donors?
So in our United Way, we often say sometimes the best thank you is the one that's unexpected. So this past year, and especially during COVID, we tried to get a little bit more creative. So in November, we literally, our staff and some of our board and committee members kind of divided and conquered. We literally went and delivered pies to every Legacy Society member's house with a thank you card on it, and every Tocqueville member. We did something similar around Valentine's. Publix has a big presence in our community, so they donated these little Valentine cookies to us, and we had a nice thank you card, and we just literally left it on their front door, rang the doorbell if they were home, but it was unexpected, and I think that was very appreciated. We do have, our committee members, every time we get a new Legacy Society member or Tocqueville, they write thank yous. We have the events. We have I mentioned our annual meeting that we do in August. We also do a big fundraiser in May. It's actually next Friday. This will be the first one in 3 years that we've done, but it is kind of an outdoor dinner kind of thing. with occasion menu, and so it is a fundraiser. We sell tickets, but we send 2 complimentary tickets to our Legacy Society members just as a thank you. So those are some just little things that really don't cost us a lot of money, but they're unexpected and they're appreciated. And we do the same thing for our annual meeting. We send 2 tickets complimentary for our total and Legacy.
We have well, we did going into COVID, and we will again now that COVID is fading, have an annual event where we invite all of the folks who contributed to our endowment to have a party, get an update, get to hear some missions about what their endowment has done. And we also use that as an opportunity to do a lifetime service award. We give away our benefactors award at that event. And then in addition, for the challenge itself, we commission the sculpture downtown, and we have a name plaque that goes with that sculpture. There wasn't much traffic in our office, and we didn't want to do a plaque on the wall. We wanted it to be something folks could see and be part of unifying downtown Statesville.
If you haven't seen the one here in Greenville, I suggest you go down and take a look at it as well. It's on the way down to the Courtyard Marriott. It is beautiful. It's a fountain. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Tonya with United Way of the Detroit region. I was just wondering, do you differentiate at all between term life insurance policies and whole life insurance policies when you take commitments?
So I will say that's one of the great things about the United Way Life product. If you call Evelyn, she'll walk you through it. But it's a 5-year payment plan, and then it's a whole life policy. And so in our case, what we did is we had the donors pay the amount. There's no cash payoff amount, no cash payoff discount. So we had them pay off whatever the premium's going to be over that 5 years. We put it in our endowment to grow interest, and we're paying that out over a 5-year period of time, and then it will be owned by United Way. So it's an irrevocable plan gift.
So the product is United Way Life, and it is irrevocable. There are many ways that you can use it as a strategy, a conversation piece, but it's definitely an opportunity for donors who are involved with United Way. There are parameters, not everybody can qualify for it, but Evelyn is our endowment plan giving coordinator at United Way, and I can definitely get you in touch with her.
So this is through United Way Worldwide?
It is a product that we offer to local United Ways to help with the vehicle, so you don't have to go out and do it yourself.
And so if we want information, do we just reach out? Or?
Yeah, reach out to me. I am in the app. I'm sorry, we don't have cards anymore, so I can't give you a card, but Jennifer, just kind of leave me a text or email me. Happy to.
The other thing, so there are a lot of other life insurance products out there that you can use. My experience with one is that it's a long time to be making a payment every year, and that can get a little chancy as life unfolds 20 years down the road.
That's right.
And so that's what I really liked about the United Way Life policies, is focused timeline, and then it's done, and the donor doesn't have to keep thinking about it every year for 20 years.
And a lot of them are revocable. So United Way Life is set up to be irrevocable. Yes.
Sky Geddes, United Way, Fairfield County, Ohio. I was curious, I thought I heard you mention that you used a fundraiser at some point in time, or someone that helped you identify some plan givers. I was wondering if you did, and how did you source that? And then Brett, did you?
Yeah, so we did. We used a consultant. I asked some of my colleagues who are like NTSU's foundation, our hospital foundations, other organizations in the area that have big plan programs who they had worked with. So I got recommendations, and it's really good to get referrals and recommendations from other people that actually worked with them. And then we had maybe a list of 3 that we interviewed and asked them to submit a proposal, and we selected one from there. Our committee kind of reviewed all the proposals, and we're just been doing those interviews and made our decision from there.
We did a similar RFP process. We hired the firm that had success at raising money in Iredell County previously, and also had somebody with United Way experience that was going to be our chief consulting contact. We also in-housed. We were very fortunate to bring onto our team a half-time position that is solely focused on endowment conversations. And we looked for people with existing relationship networks, and we're very fortunate to have somebody with that everybody in the town knows, and has been a wonderful addition to our team to focus on these conversations.
Thank you.
Right behind. Hi, Lisa Cofer, United Way of Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia. Megan, awesome. Brett, thank you all so much for what you do for Brett and that community. Okay, question. You talked about risky grants. You talked about how your investments help to fund the Veterans Transitional Housing, which my brother's veteran, is awesome. And then the paramedicine program. I'm curious, do you use only the interest from your investments in your endowment? Is that part of your policy? That's what ours is, but of course it's to fund as admin expenses, and I love this.
So we did something a little different. Ours is actually functionally set up as a quasi-endowment,
Okay.
which means the board has the ability to use more than just the interest earnings. And it also means we are not required to kick off a certain percentage in a year. And we did that because one of our usage criteria is to be a safety net in a time of disaster.
Yes.
So if tornadoes hit in Iredell County, hopefully they will not, we have the ability to go further into the endowment than the spendable balance to meet that immediate need. But we have set a very strict policy structure around, the board wants to make it very clear, we ain't just doing that because it sounds good one year. We're doing that only in the case of extreme needs.
That's kind of what we have done as well. Our policy is we only invest the interest from those, but the board is the only group that we can take to them and say, this has happened or whatever. Okay, and then my second question is for the Johnsons and for Brett. You talked about the challenge match. Did you all help fund the match? Is that part of what you all did? So you all said, we'll donate $100,000 up to $100,000 or whatever it was, and then use that as match when you're out there.
Their actual challenge to us was, you guys go out and raise $1.9 million, and I'll give you another $1 million on top of it.
Okay.
And they did.
So you could go to the donor and say, if you make a gift of $10,000, we have someone that's going to match it at $10,000.
Yes, now it was a challenge, not a match. Just to be clear, we had to raise all $1.9 million, or they could have said, we will give you nothing.
I did say that.
That wasn't correct.
And we reminded him several times.
How long did it take you then to raise that? And you may have gone over that. I was voraciously taking notes, so I don't want to miss that.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share any of the details. So that was one of the initial conversations when the Johnsons came to us was, let's make sure we're on the same page and very clear about this. So we tried to record it all in a contract kind of document,
Right.
not a legally enforceable thing, but something so we made sure we were all on exactly the same page. And they were very kind to give us, I believe it was 3 years to meet this goal, meet this challenge. And one thing that I would urge you make part of that conversation was how to treat planned gifts if you have a similar situation. The Johnsons could have said, we want cash on the barrelhead, and that's all we're going to count. They gave us a much more powerful gift by giving us the option to have some of these longer term kinds of gifts as part of that.
So we have about 5 minutes left. I just want to lift up a few of the resources that we have. On the front table is Megan's Legacy Society pamphlet. Please come up, get it, we'll pass it back, because I know it's kind of difficult to get up here. United Way Online is a fantastic resource. It has a ton of information that Evelyn has populated. If you have not spoken to Evelyn, reach out to Evelyn. Evelyn is my colleague. She is extremely knowledgeable in endowment, planned giving, fundraising in general, but definitely is your first go-to for that. Unfortunately, she's not here today, so I'm filling in for her. We can take probably 2 more questions, depending on the length of them. So is there other questions that you all have?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For the Johnsons, thank you so much for being those very special people.
Thank you.
You know, it's because And I'm interested in how to get to the next person. And you're very special because you understand and you know nonprofits. And nonprofits across the country are vouching for your money. And so how is it a good way for us to go to get to you? Because a lot of times people have money, like, don't want to be bothered because everybody's after their money. You obviously like what United Way is doing. So is it better for peer-to-peer, or is it better that we find that in person and go to them? Because they can easily tell me no, but they can tell, their next door neighbor, they can sit around and talk to them about it.
I know what you're talking about exactly, because I've been on boards for years and years, and I know when people see me coming, they go, "Oh God, she's gonna ask me." I hate to ask for money, but being on a board, a community board, you see the needs of the community in different sections, and that was one of the pushes for me to approach Frank and say, you know, this nonprofit, I'm on this board and we do this and we really need some money. And he would say, okay. And then we go to another one, because he was always working. And I was fortunate enough to be able to be in the community and make these contacts. And I think when you look at the community boards and you see who's on the Circle of Giving or Brother and Sister Club or the, you know, Salvation Army or whatever, if you look at them, there are a lot of people that can't give, but they're giving their time. Right. But there are people that you look at and you think they can't give, and they can. And when you look at those boards first, because honestly, when I first started asking for money, I would think, oh, okay, I know this person, they've got a construction company, or they've got this company, they are comfortable, they will give me some money. And they would say no, and I would go, what? I couldn't get, my feelings were hurt. I didn't know what in the world to say except, but, I took your name, I was sure, and they were like, I'll do that. And I think, you know, Frank was saying, Iredell County is very conservative, and for a long time there was a lot of money that just didn't get shared, but I'm seeing more and more people open up now and share. I really am. But I think you look through your boards and you go to some of those, and they'll tell you people that are ready and willing. I mean, I'm not saying don't go to Lowe's, don't go to some of these big places that are going to support you, but I'm saying don't forget those little boards around the community, because you'll have a lot of men and women that are retired or fortunate enough not to, you know, have to stay in a career, and they can do these things that they don't get paid for just because they love doing it. Right. And you'll say, oh, you know, we can go over here and talk to them and see what, and then they may know somebody else that they can pull out.
30 seconds, one lesson learned that you wish you would have known at the beginning of your planned giving endowment approach.
Well, you gotta tee me up for it, because I think it's, you know, not to assume, as I mentioned earlier, you see people in the community that are wealthy, they may not be connected to United Way, they may not have supported you in the past, so don't assume that they're gonna support you in this effort. Look at the people who've been tried and true with you all along, regardless of what you think their situation is financially, and they've been part of this program. At least give them the courtesy of an ask.
Right, 30 seconds, lesson learned.
Don't be scared to have the conversation. People want to make a difference. And if you give them a chance to make a difference in a big way, they're more excited, not less excited. As long as you can back it up and have a plan for how to do it.
Linda, 30 seconds. From a volunteer perspective, what would you have done differently or lesson learned?
From the endowment?
Or fundraising in general?
Well, I would say when you go out to ask someone for money, don't be afraid to ask for a lot. I mean, don't be afraid to ask for a lot. Don't be afraid to give them an amount.
Yeah.
say, do you think you could give us $25,000?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think you could give, I mean, you have to know, you know your person.
Absolutely.
But if you go in and say, $5,000, people have said, we were gonna give you 20, but they only asked for 5.
That's right.
You know, so don't be afraid to put it out there and say, well, that sounds like quite a bit. Say, well, whatever you feel like is good for you right now. And then let them make that decision, but don't leave money on the table.
Frank, last words of wisdom.
Well, I guess what Brett said, y'all remember the Ghostbuster movie, you know, where they had the circle with the line across? We have one of those in our office, and it says, it's got that circle with the line going across it, and it says the way we've always done things. So don't be afraid to realize where you are at the moment and go for it. Okay?
Thank you all very much. We can stick around for 10 or 15 minutes if you have any questions you can answer. It's a great group today. Thank you.
I'm trying to be like so good and